Welcome to the Brain Health Hookup. I'm Laurel Myers Hurst, your resident groovologist, and I believe that better mental health needs to be fun. Here we talk about mental wellness, we explore the physical, emotional, and relational needs we have as humans with the science and practices that help our mental health to flourish. Plus, we dive into my signature method, groove therapy, that engages folks in groove-based music making to lift mood and lower inflammation and pain. I'm so glad you're here. So let's hit it.
Well.
That's a deep subject.
I ordered the first cases of my book just out on Amazon called Groove Therapy, Re-engaging the Transformative Power of Rhythm in Communication and Relationships. I can't tell you how good it feels to have it on the way. And I hope the boxes don't get damaged because I ordered quite a few. I need to fulfill some pre-orders and, of course, make sure I get a few to my close family and friends and some of the champions who have been waiting for this book to come out and believed it could be. I'm so excited. Well, I believe that just like the book says, due to the wonders of neuroplasticity, people really can and do change because every 15 months or so, all the connections in your brain swap out for new ones. Every single day until the last day that you breathe, you will have some connections in your brain resorbing and some regrowing. So you will continue to grow and change. I'm counting on it. But even in the process of improving your mental wellness, even with the best care, people can get discouraged in recovery. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. How to avoid that discouragement of feeling like you might be plateauing in your recovery. Well, discouragement comes from that sense, like I said, of plateauing. The feeling that you, in your recovery, you may never get to remission. Just to review, remission means mild to no symptoms. And remission looks different for different people. Some people come into remission without treatment. Some people receive treatment and then don't need it anymore. Some people can only maintain mild to no symptoms with ongoing treatment. Sometimes that treatment is very long standing and maybe months, years, or sometimes decades of treatment, either constant or intermittent treatment. But remission is that state of getting to mild to no symptoms. I notice a really great upswing in mood in most of my patients. We start with reducing inflammation, then we move to improving nutrition. We start to address some of the symptoms of their depression or anxiety, but especially with anxiety, I find with patients who look to me like they're getting better, still come with like a little bit of a shudder to their appointments and say, I don't know what it is, but I still really feel so anxious. And I've started to challenge my patients about these I feel anxiety statements. I do have the most empathy for what they're feeling, and it can be very discouraging and make them doubt whether they'll ever really be better. And I want to carefully reframe sensations of anxiety with a few questions. Would you like to hear some of those questions? First, I ask patients, does what you're feeling start in your head or in your body? If the feeling starts in their body, the solution is also found in their body. They can't really think their way out of those feelings because they're deeply rooted in the nervous system. That comes as a shock to some people, and it's a whole new way of thinking about what you're feeling. The second question is, when you have these feelings, are they on a wide range of topics or are they specific issues and concerns that keep coming up time and again? Generalized anxiety disorder The hallmark of it is you give me something, I'll find something to worry about it. It's very broad ranging. It's unescapable. It's not the same few things over and over again. It's just like, give me a chance to be worried. I'll be worried about it. But when we find that our concerns, our ruminations, our negative feelings are focused on a very few topics, it's often that we're using those few things that we value very highly to cover other things. So we get on themes, and those are almost intrusive or ruminating thoughts that catch us up and sometimes serve as a cover for other things we're not ready to face yet. Then the third question is, do these feelings cause you to avoid certain things, or are they feelings that you have while you're doing the things? If there really isn't a pattern of avoidance, we're managing a state of activation rather than specifically anxiety. So I'm going to follow up here with these questions with a foundation shaking statement. We will always face activation. We will always face activation. Just like your brain will grow and change until the day you breathe your last, day in, day out, you will face activation. No therapy, no coping mechanism, no medication will remove every activation. In fact, we wouldn't want them to. Activation of emotions provide energy for us to do what otherwise could not be done or would not get done. Emotion means endogenous motion, motion generated from within us rather than motion generated from outside of us. So everybody knows the feeling of getting in a car or on a roller coaster. Those are emotions that are outward, right? They're external things that are moving us. Emotions is endogenous, moving us from within. Emotion or endogenous motion gives us the lift necessary to do the next thing, whether it's fear that might power you to protect yourself or a loved one, or joy that fuels your preparation for a special family occasion, or maybe sorrow that enables you to reach out in empathy toward a neighbor. Emotional activation is power, but short circuit or mismanage that power, and you can run into some really dangerous territory. That might look like fear that's not allowed to power action taking and pops out like anger or even rage. Or it might appear like insecurity that's mismanaged and simmers in resentment. Well, regulated emotions appear proportional to the stimulus. So, for example, if we're outraged by some revelation of a terrible, horrible betrayal, we expect that kind of activation to result in great power or amplitude of emotion. But if we're miffed that we didn't get through a yellow light and we're held in traffic for 3 minutes, we expect that kind of activation to result in a slight power or amplitude of emotion. When emotional amplitude is highly mismatched compared to the activation, it's time to get curious. There's usually a reason for mismatches in emotional reactivity or emotional dysregulation. Emotional regulation isn't about always unwaveringly keeping your cool. It's about the activation and the power of the emotion matching relative to each other. Some people naturally have broader or narrower amplitude and expression of emotion. That's expected. Like, I'm an extrovert and I tend to feel my feelings that appear even to outsiders as bigger in a bigger range. My husband's an introvert, and I have taken to asking him questions in the form of numbers. Like, how good do you feel about this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest? And then he might say an 8, where before he would say everything was good. This is good. That was good. The other thing was good. And I had no idea what kind of good he was talking about. So it's expected that different people have different ranges of emotions. But what isn't expected is when emotional reactivity is out of proportion and where a person becomes excessively reactive, hyperactivated, or excessively unreactive or hypoactive. The goal is, if something really impactful happens, a very big activation occurs, that the emotion is at the top of our range, but we don't become hyperstimulated to the point that we lose reason or function, or that when something happens, we become extremely hypoactive, that the activation causes us to sink, to conk out, kind of. These are mismatched activation emotion responses. Mismatched or dysregulated emotional states usually point to past painful experiences, both the wounds we have received from others and the painful narratives we internally rehearse about what has happened to us. The latter are accessible cognitive wounds that we can think about. We can reframe them, rethink them, reconsider, and recover from them often. But the former are more inaccessible wounds. We often need to revisit them to digest, to metabolize, to process them through the nervous system of the body. That leads to profound nervous system tone and health that's physically, mentally, and relationally restorative. So we started this conversation with concerns about remission that might seem elusive. We started investigating the question of whether activation on board might feel like anxiety, and how activation can be regulated so that activation stimulus and emotional reactivity are equally matched. When we are equally matched and well regulated on the whole or overall, we experience self-respect and we gain the respect of others because we are living in line with our own values. We're somewhat predictable and even keeled. Whether our emotional range is very large or very small, we can carry that emotion to do the work it's intended to do, to lift us to the completion of that inner motion, that endogenous motion, powering us to do what we want to do. So if you're wondering who can help and what that would look like, I'd love to introduce you to the concept through my new book that I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast, The Groove Therapy, now available on Amazon, and to our somatic processing membership that opens up later this year, the Brain Health Hookup Community. That community will open its doors and the waitlist is open now. I truly believe we cannot simply think ourselves out of the deepest wounds we carry. The solutions to our dreaded feelings of hyperactivation and hypoactivation are in our bodies. And I'd love to show you how we can help.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Brain Health Hookup. I hope this episode radiates with the conviction that generating mental wellness needs to be fun and safe. We want you to find your power and understand your innate design to flourish in everything you do. And we hope that inspires you to come back and listen for more. I'd love for you to leave a review of this podcast, as it helps this show grow to reach more people who need to make mental wellness fun. You can find the leave a review button, as well as all the YouTube visuals, bonuses, and ways we can help to support you on our website, podcast.grooveforhealth.com. I appreciate you more than words can say. See you next time, and remember, together we have everything we need.